Let's begin by adopting a comfortable posture, taking 3 deep breaths and relaxing our bodies, finding a posture of balance, stillness. And allowing our body, our breath, and our minds to settle in its natural state. Release any points of tension you find in your body. Release all concerns about the past and the future, and come to rest in the present. Now allow your breath to be natural, without controlling it, without modifying it. And let's set our motivation for this practice so we can cultivate greater balance, understanding, wisdom, and apply it to our lives in order to benefit ourselves and benefit those around us. Now let's spend a few minutes practicing mindfulness as we did this morning. Resting in a state of presence without focusing on anything in particular, just open, without judgment. Fully present, moment by moment, with whatever arises, without distraction, without grasping, just resting. In a state of open presence, completely relaxed. If you find yourself daydreaming, lost in distraction, come to rest in the present experience. Your body is still, as if it were sleeping, and your mind is awake, clear, vivid. Continue practicing mindful presence during the rest of the session while we meditate on how to transform attachment. We're now going to reflect on those objects of our attachment and apply an antidote to these. You can use one example of your life for each point, or you can use different examples. So let's begin by thinking of a thing, person, situation, anything that we possess or that we would like to possess. Or an experience we would like to get. Bring it to mind, visualize it, or visualize yourself in that situation. Something you're attached to. And now ask yourself, will it bring lasting happiness and satisfaction? What new problems could arise? Does it or any external person or thing have the ability to bring you lasting happiness? Now bring to mind something you have, but you might be separated from. It can be an object, a person, a job, anything. What is the worst thing that could happen? Is that likely to happen? What resources do you have? Internal resources. And what resources you have in your community that can help you deal with the situation. Now think of something you've been separated from. Look back at the thing, person, situation that you are now separated from and rejoice at the time you had together. Decide to let go of the attachment, if there's still some, and go into the future with optimism. Imagine giving the thing or person to someone else who receives it with joy. With a joyful mind. Imagine offering the thing or person to the Buddha. Visualize yourself letting go of attachment. Feeling balanced and free to enjoy without clinging, without attachment. Visualize yourself in the future, entering in contact with people, situations, objects, with an attitude of equanimity, without attachment, letting go when it's time to let go. And now dissolve the visualization, analysis, thinking. Just come to rest in the present. Letting the past dissolve. Not anticipating the future. Just resting in this moment. Resting in that feeling of detachment, fully present. And let's finish dedicating the merit, the potential, the energy we've cultivated through this practice so that we can continue living a life without attachment, without craving, enjoying things and situations with an attitude of wisdom, understanding, and to cultivate in this way the causes of happiness, genuine happiness. And through this, may we be able to benefit others as well. And dedicate this merit also for any situation you have in your life you want to let go of attachment. May this be possible. And stretch a little bit back. So we continue with this topic of attachment that we started yesterday. Yesterday the meditation was taking out the ache of attachment, and today is how we transform attachment. So there's many ways to do this. One is applying antidotes. Using our wisdom to analyze what is going on, why are we attached to certain thing or situation or outcome or object or person, and to question ourselves like we did in this meditation, asking, is this thing, object, situation really as I perceive it? Does it possess these positive qualities? Am I exaggerating them? Is this likely to end or finish or deteriorate? Or is it likely that I will be separated from this eventually? And it seems like we know these things, we believe we know them, but at a deep level, we don't know them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be attached. If we accepted that things and situations are impermanent, or that they are changing constantly, and we accepted that reality, we wouldn't be attached. But we are attached because we are constantly projecting permanence on things that are not permanent. We are projecting and exaggerating positive qualities where they don't exist. And we are constantly grasping and wanting to get happiness from something that by nature cannot make us happy forever, right? Or give us the same pleasure once it gave us. So analyzing and looking closely to the object of our attachment is one way of starting letting go of this attachment, of gaining greater wisdom. And then we can also liberate that attachment when it arises. We are not constantly always feeling that attachment or experiencing that attachment. Sometimes we feel free, and this happens when we are fully present, when we are not fantasizing or grasping to that object. There's moments in which we are free, and if we learn to recognize those moments and cultivate them and increase them, then is a way to let go of attachment. So the moment we see the attachment arising, if we observe it, as with any other mental affliction, it can self-liberate if we don't make it bigger, or we don't feed it with thoughts and ideas and this grasping that we usually have, right? So normally when a mental affliction arises, we convince ourselves that we should feel in that way, and we start thinking about why we should feel in that way. But if we just observe it, then we are taking distance. We are looking at the affliction arise and pass. And so when a mental affliction arises and it's small, we can apply an antidote and release it faster. But when we've cultivated for a long time and we are very attached to an object, or for example, we are fantasizing about getting something, and we spend hours thinking about this object or thing or situation we want to obtain, the craving increases. And we are convincing ourselves in that story we tell ourselves that once we get this, we are going to be happy. This object is going to give us satisfaction. So we put all our energy chasing after that dream just to get disappointed one more time. And once we get it, maybe give us a little bit of a rush of satisfaction, of joy. But very soon we know the object doesn't give us that happiness. Why? Because it doesn't come from the object. It comes from our mind. So we get disappointed, it doesn't fulfill our expectations, and then we start thinking, well, if I made a mistake. This was not the thing that will make me happy. But if I only get another partner, another car, another house, another job, then I will be happy. And then you start chasing again after other things. And we live in that delusion, right? So if we learn to let go of this attachment, then we will be free. But we have been habituated for so long that we don't know how to do it. So all these meditations and reflecting again and again on these objects of attachment have that objective of helping us let go of attachment, right? Cultivate detachment. So also by cultivating generosity, and we will do the practice of generosity, it can help us cultivate detachment, release attachment, because it's kind of the opposite, right? When we give, and we give without expectation, because there's different forms of giving. Sometimes we give expecting something in return, then it's a giving that comes from attachment. It's a selfish giving. But when we give without expectation, we are practicing detachment, we're practicing letting go. So we can start by giving away little things that we are not so attached to, and train our minds in that habit, cultivating a habit of giving as much as we can. And we can give material things, we can give service to others, we can offer our skills, our talents, our time, words of support. There's many things we can give, not only money or material things, right? But if we find that we are very attached to an object or to a situation that we can't let go, we can start by giving other things that we have a little attachment, but not so much. And in this way, training. And then also bring to mind constantly things that you were attached in the past, but you can see now that you let go. Maybe you were so attached when you lost that thing or that person or that object. You were suffering so much because it broke, it deteriorated, or you lost it, or it left you. But now, after time has passed, your perception is different. You're not attached to it anymore. You came to be in peace with it, and you accepted that it's gone. And the moment you really let go, you're free, right? But maybe you clinged to that object for a day, or for weeks, or months, or years. And eventually, you said enough, and you let go. And that moment, you're free. So by remembering these things we have let go of, that also helps us to train in letting go of new things that we will eventually lose or be separated from, right? And when we get something new, or it just comes to our lives due to positive karma ripening, we should remember always that we will always be parted from those objects. We will be separated, that things are changing, we are changing, and that eventually everything that comes together will part. So if we keep that in mind, we can enjoy the things, the situations that come to our life, but without grasping to them strongly, because we know eventually everything is like a dream. It will be dissolved. It will be gone. And the biggest attachment we have, of course, is to ourselves. We're attached to our bodies. We are terrified of losing our bodies and dying. And we are attached to the sense of self. Right? So when someone attacks us or criticizes, that attachment arises very strong. So all the meditations of vipassana are going to help us understand that we will also lose our body, our most precious possession. We will lose our mind, another of our precious possessions, but that we can be free too. And how are we going to do this? By doing vipashyana on ourselves, investigating how we exist, how our body exists in relation with all the other phenomena. We will realize our own impermanence and our own lack of inherent existence. But that doesn't mean that when we die, we just disappear and vanish into nothing, right? There is a continuity of consciousness, a continuity of awareness. But we will get into that in another meditation, and we will discuss and meditate on that Buddhist hypothesis of the continuity of consciousness. We don't have to believe it, but it might help us have some understanding or be more at peace with the idea that we will have to let go of everything eventually, right? So I'm not saying this is easy. We are basically attached to everything. We get attached very easily. And that's why attachment is the cause of suffering, right? And that's why we want to be free, completely free. And when we are completely free, we can find genuine happiness. But starting with that motivation, with that decision, and putting the effort into doing these meditations and reflections will help us and will be beneficial. So why not doing it, right? Even if it's hard, even if it's difficult. Eventually, as we practice and practice, it will become easier. And that is what meditation means. Meditation is familiarization, is training, is creating new habits, new mental states, positive mental states, and cultivating them. And we do it by repetition, right? We have been meditating and habituating ourselves for many, many years on the opposite, on being attached, on suffering, on being dissatisfied. And now we are training in the opposite, right? So it will take some time, but with discipline and constancy, we will eventually find that is very, very helpful for us. Okay? So, what do you experience with this meditation? Do you have any questions, comments? Nothing? Very quiet.
How is this different from what we did yesterday?
How is it different?
Yeah.
Well, the questions were different, and yesterday we were focused on how we create the situation, how we project the situation being in a certain way, and how we could have perceive it in a different way, or say something different, or act in a different way, and that would have created a different outcome, right? So when we see ourselves in an emotional episode with a lot of attachment, craving, and a lot of emotion arising, we can do that meditation by seeing it in third person and playing it in our minds, and kind of be present with it, and also analyze what happened there, and then make a decision to make changes, to do it differently next time we encounter a similar situation, right? And in that way start releasing all that pain that we create with those emotional episodes. And today is more about how we transform an attachment that we have and that we might not have not reflected on the fact that we are going to be separated from our objects of attachment, that we crave for things that cannot give us lasting happiness. So it's a way to start transforming this attitude we have towards everything we encounter that is attachment. Sometimes we relate with things with the opposite, with aversion, with rejection. But aversion and rejection is another manifestation of attachment. To give you an example, if we feel rejection of the weather being cold, right? We feel aversion. We don't want to be cold. But why is that? Because we are attached to being warm. We are attached to feeling comfortable. So whenever we feel any kind of rejection or aversion or anger, it's because there is attachment there. So it's kind of the other side of the same coin, right? So working with attachment and aversion, these are the root causes of suffering. And of course, the root cause of this attachment and aversion is ignorance. And ignorance is not an emotion, it's not a feeling, it's a misconstructing of reality. It's a misunderstanding. And this is interesting because we need wisdom in order to correct that misperception, misunderstanding of reality that creates recurrent problems, pains, dissatisfactions, right? So through the wisdom of vipashyana is that we are able to cut the root of ignorance, cut attachment and aversion, and if we cut these three roots, then all the other mental afflictions, that is like a tree, the branches of of a tree will dissolve too. So, yeah. Anything else? Any question or comment? Yes?
I think when I was visualizing, I was reflecting a lot of the things that I'm attached to are because they're impermanent. Like a baby that's always changing, that's what makes a baby so special. Or like a flower that blooms once a year, or something like that. And I really like the feeling of being sad and happy at the same time. Is that liberated happiness, or is that just another attachment?
Well, that's interesting because sadness is not a mental affliction per se. You can be sad because you feel an immeasurable compassion, and it's not a negative feeling or emotion, right? So you can be happy and sad at the same time, right? When sadness is due to a grasping, a selfishness, then is when it becomes a mental affliction. But if your sadness is coming from the acceptance that everything is impermanent, maybe some sadness arises in your mind, is arising, and you see it, and you're okay feeling it and allowing it to arise and pass, then it's not affecting you. And this is true actually for all emotions. But this is another understanding, another method, right? When you experience a strong emotion, there is wisdom in every emotion. Maybe later we will discuss a little bit about the 5 primordial wisdoms and the correlative with the emotions. But to give you an example, when we are angry, there's a quality of clarity in the mind, of vividness, of sharpness. You feel very alive when you're angry, and even smart, very intelligent, very clear about what you want. Maybe it's to destroy something, but there's clarity, right, in that anger. So if we are able to transform anger, it will transform into the mirror-like wisdom of clarity, of sharpness, right? And the same way, attachment has a quality of joy. That's why we fantasize about something we want, and it gives us some pleasure to think about the object that we think is going to make us happy. Just feeling attachment has a quality of bliss, of joy. Of course, very easy it becomes pain, right? But if we were able to transform and see that quality of attachment and keep the joy, it would transform into a manifestation of wisdom. Every emotion, every appearance is arising out of that wisdom. Our true nature is wisdom and compassion. Yet, is kind of misconstructed or is obscured and manifesting as mental afflictions due to ignorance, the ignorance of grasping to a self separated from everything else, of projecting permanence to all phenomena and reality, right? So when you say you are observing things that are impermanent, you say it in a way as if there were things that weren't impermanent. But everything is impermanent. So if you learn to see everything, including yourself and other people and objects, in that way, like unique, like that flower, like that baby that is changing, but is in that change, there is some beauty, right? Because it's impermanent. But that we can apply to all phenomena. So resting in a state of acceptance and seeing things change and not grasping to that idea that they should remain in certain stage, but that they are going to change, and every change and every stage is beautiful, right? Then you are living according with reality and enjoying every moment, every process. Right? So we see, for example, the example of a baby is very cute, very beautiful. It gives rise to feelings of love, of caring, right? But then suddenly that baby doesn't exist anymore. It dissolved, and now you have a teenager that you say, this teenager is impossible to deal with. Where is the beautiful baby that was there? It doesn't exist anymore, right? How this cute person could transform into this terrible teenager? Well, it's the same continuity. Yeah, everything has changed in that person. All their cells, the body has changed completely. The mind, maybe they liked some things when they were baby, and now they like completely different things, right? Now they hear this horrible music, and they dress with these horrible clothes, and everything you perceive in this person now is, you perceive it as negative, right? But if you see that is the same flow, the continuity of that baby, then you can see the baby in this teenager and the teenager in the baby, see? And accepting every stage of the change is living according with reality. And this we can see in ourselves. We can do this meditation that we were talking yesterday about retrocognition, and say, I'm going to meditate on seeing my life, the changes in my body. So you do it in third person. You observe how you were a baby, and then how you became a teenager, and then an adult, and then how you're aging and you have white hairs, and then all the process, right? But you're just watching the changes and realizing your own impermanence and accepting it, fully accepting it. So instead of wanting things to remain in one stage, because that's when we start suffering, because we're going against reality, we want things not to change. If we learn to accept the reality of impermanence and change, then we will be free, because we're accepting what it is. We don't want something that cannot be, right? So, of course, when you become aware that you're gonna age, that you're gonna lose your loved ones eventually, there's a sadness arising that is connected to that understanding of impermanence. When it really hits you and you really become aware of it, there's a sadness, right? You realize, I will have to let go, whether I like it or not. And so some people think Buddhism is kind of depressing, because it talks too much about impermanence and death and all these horrible things, and why not talk about joyful things, right? But actually, it's not depressing, it's realistic. And so the more we learn to accept reality, the more free we will be. And then eventually that sadness will be experienced as happiness, as joy, as freedom, right? So yeah, maybe you have the taste of that, those two feelings being together sometimes, right? Thank you. Anything else?
Well, just to first comment on this, this really helped me with my divorce when I saw the impermanence in suffering itself. Because at first it was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna get through this like this, because it was very nasty. But when I actually saw day by day that my suffering, my sensations are actually changing, and I saw the impermanence, it really helped me to accelerate the recovery process. So yeah, this is very cool. the impermanence. But my question is like, how about the attachment to the very spiritual experiences itself? For example, these kind of spiritual experiences like bliss and maybe even this expectation for liberation, attachment to this cessation experiences or these kind of things. How to deal with this kind of attachment?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. I think it helps us all when we see it in other people. Yeah, that's interesting because sometimes we tend to get, not sometimes, we all get attached to those spiritual experiences, right? And now we get attached to our new identity as meditators, as spiritual people, and we want to show everybody how wrong they are because they are not in a spiritual path. And then we're just repeating the same, but now with our path, right? So yeah, it's true, it happens. And when you have a very nice experience in meditation, you experience great joy, bliss, clarity, non-conceptuality, peace, you get attached to them, to these experiences. And then if you don't have them again, you start wondering what's wrong with it. This is common, and we should treat any experience on the path as that, as an impermanent experience, right? So, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. Let it go when it goes. There's a common warning in the teachings about not talk about your experiences with others, not bragging about them, not saying, "Oh, I had this wonderful experience. I was levitating." Well, maybe we don't levitate, but maybe I was having a bliss, or I was having these visions, or anything, right? And then we start telling people, but it's actually a memory. You're not having it anymore. It's not in the present. So we should let go of these experiences and actually talking about them, unless you're talking with your Dharma friends, and it's in order to clarify your practice, and you're doing it out of with that motivation, then it's okay, or with your teachers, right? But if you're just talking or telling people, "I am enlightened," like nowadays we have people in the news saying, "I'm enlightened," right? Well, watch out. If someone is claiming that they're enlightened, they're probably not enlightened. So yeah, we get attached to these experiences. We should observe them and let them pass. Sometimes negative experiences arise too in the meditation. Just notice them and let them pass. And eventually we are getting free of that attachment. But first we need to have some goals, some meaningful desires. And these are different from samsaric desires. So yeah, it's a wish to achieve enlightenment, to be free, to be happy, to experience bliss, peace. Yeah, we have this wish, this desire, but it's a constructive desire because it's going to give us the motivation, the energy, the impulse to follow the path. But once we reach a certain point, we have to let go of that desire too. And in the levels of the Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva path has certain stages that have been explained in the Buddhist literature about reaching these grounds or bhumis, right? There are stages of achievement. So when a Bodhisattva is very close to becoming a Buddha, he or she or they don't experience anymore the wish to attain enlightenment. It's irrelevant. It dissolves. There is no sense of attachment to the self. And what is there is an immeasurable loving kindness and compassion to other beings. They're not bearing the suffering of others. So the Bodhisattva at that stage relinquished the wish to become a Buddha and wants to work for the benefit of others, and even prefers that all sentient beings become enlightened before they themselves, right? So that change of attitude is what actually is gonna make them fully enlightened Buddhas, because there is no attachment anymore, no grasping anymore. All the obscurations are gone. So there's a story that Mingyur Rinpoche was telling us about his father. Actually, it was a friend. He says he is a friend of his father. I'm not sure, but he said that this very realized practitioner, a bodhisattva, he was in his last moments, about to die, and they invited a great realized master to come visit him, and he said, I sent them to call for you because I wanted to ask you my last wish. And this realized master said, okay, what do you want? You're about to die, what do you want? He said, please send me to a place that is like hell, like the worst place you can help me be reborn in, so that where there's beings that are experiencing the most terrible sufferings. That's where I want to go. I want to go help them. And this teacher said, you are so pure, such a realized bodhisattva, that no one can send you there even if we wanted, because you have such love and such compassion that you can only go to a pure realm, to a pure place, right? And he said, I know, that's why I need your help, because I really want to go help sentient beings. I don't want to go to a place where I'm just going to experience all joy and happiness, right? So that's the spirit of the bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is basically a Buddha, but is deciding to manifest in the world again and again, like coming back to the dream to help us be free from suffering. And they don't care about experiencing suffering themselves, right? For example, His Holiness Dalai Lama, you can see him here, he is considered a bodhisattva. He's a bodhisattva, right? But at the same time, he is considered the emanation of a Buddha, the Buddha of compassion, Avalokiteshvara. So this Buddha mind, the great compassion, is manifesting in this dream that we are experiencing. It's manifesting in a physical form. We perceive him as a human being, right? And this physical form is called Nirmanakaya. A Buddha has 3 bodies. We can talk about this later, but there is the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, which is a form that only a realized bodhisattva, realized beings can perceive. And then there is the Nirmanakaya, this manifestation as a human form, so we can relate to this Buddha. And this Nirmanakaya is manifesting as a bodhisattva, right? So he says, I'm just a simple monk, I don't have any realization. But if you see all his enlightened activity, all the things he's been doing for people all his life, then you see he's acting all out of compassion and wisdom and loving kindness, right? There's no attachment to a self. So in that way you can see he's a bodhisattva, but he's also a Buddha. So that's the spirit of the Bodhisattva. It's a being that has released even the attachment to become a Buddha or to experience that bliss, that clarity. But of course, in the path, we're going to have that desire first, we're going to strive for it, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to experience some peace or some bliss or enjoying it actually when it arises in your meditation. Knowing that eventually we have to let go of that attachment too. And how do we do that in our practice? When it arises, bliss or peace or clarity, anything, we enjoy it, we let it go. And then if we sit in another session and we don't experience bliss but experience pain or suffering, that's okay too. We accept it, right? In that way we are working with it. Now, the difference between what we call the subtle consciousness, the consciousness we access through the Shamatha practice, and primordial consciousness or Buddha nature, when we describe them, we use the same characteristics. It's not that they really have separate characteristics, but in terms of speaking, we say that when you achieve Shamatha, you experience a state of clarity, of non-conceptuality, and bliss. But at that point, there is this still duality and this sense you were talking about of an observer or a subject experiencing bliss, clarity, and non-conceptuality, and able to distinguish between the three of them. And some of us will get more attached to the bliss. We love experiencing bliss. All others will be more attached to the peace, silence, non-conceptuality. And others will be more attached to the clarity aspect of the mind, right? We're distinguishing and we're getting attached. And the instruction, of course, is to let go. When we talk about primordial consciousness or Buddha nature, it's described as having these three characteristics: clarity, bliss, and non-conceptuality as well. Yet, when you realize primordial consciousness or Buddha nature, you won't distinguish between these three. And there won't be a subject and an object experience of experiencing. There will be a totally non-dual experience. So this, you won't distinguish or be attached to one or the other. It's just arising, primordial consciousness, but there's no sense of a subject and an object, right? So we don't have to worry as we practice this. If we practice correctly, this is just going to release by itself on the final stages of our practice, right? So, yeah, that's the difference between a desire that is samsaric, a desire that is mundane, that is selfish, self-centered, and desires that are constructive and meaningful. So when we do the practices of, for example, of the four immeasurables, the loving kindness, compassion, we wish that sentient beings be free from suffering. That's a meaningful wish, and it's good to have it. And it's a desire, it's an aspiration, but it comes from a selfless motivation. It's different, right? Okay, well, thank you, and let's dedicate this session in our minds for the benefit of all sentient beings, for our path, that we can keep cultivating the causes for enlightenment, that we become fully realized bodhisattvas and Buddhas, able to benefit countless sentient beings.